First, the translation. Will you do it?
I'll try. Yes.
I know the answer very well because he speaks Arabic al-Fusha, huh? Very well, mashallah. Every word is understandable, huh?
Alhamdulillah. The question of our honorable guest today, he said, after the verse which he has just recited, he said, I understand from this verse that Allah is advising the Muslims to declare the jihad, to answer the call of qital, of jihad.
No, jihad is not mentioned here. Qital fi sabilillah.
Qital fi sabilillah. No.
This is a type of jihad.
No.
Yes.
And this, as Hadith will mention, this is a type of jihad.
Yes. They understood, of course, the meaning, but for the English speaking, please.
Yes. And the other bit of his question was about, he said he has described the situation of the Muslims today, and he said that there's a lot of atrocity being committed against the Muslim children and women as well, and the only reaction from the Muslim leaders mainly, they only deny all this atrocity and nothing else have been done so far. And what is the and he also mentioned the things happening, the atrocity in Kuwait, for instance, and in Iran, and he would like to know the comments of Hazrat Amir Mu'mineen regarding all these important issues.
You see, there are many different terms used by the Holy Quran. Number one, jihad, al-jihad fi sabilillah. That term is very widely comprehensive. Only a part of it could be qital, not all of it. Jahidhum bihi jihadan kabira refers to the Holy Quran, not to a sword. And this is called jihadan kabira. So jihad bin nafs also is considered and so declared by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be higher in order than the jihad bil qital. Because returning from a position of qital, a situation of qital, he said, now we return to the jihad bin nafs, which is kabir. So jihad is a very wide term which literally means any strife in the cause of Allah. When the situation so demands and the Quran so permits, when the call is made by God for defense, for a defensive war, if you are attacked by the enemy, then that also becomes jihad, although technically speaking it is called qital. So the verse which you have quoted presents a situation where qital was made essential because of the enemy's attack on the Muslims. And it has always been so. What made qital essential at Badr? What made qital essential at Uhud? When did Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam raid Mecca during Badr? Did they not come all the way from there themselves? Who brought the army of the great warriors of Arabia, including Khalid bin Walid at the Battle of Uhud? Who attacked the Ahzab? Was it Rasulullah sallam and his army who went out to wage a war with the Arabian tribes? Not at all. It was they who initiated the war and made it impossible for Islam to survive if they were not permitted to defend themselves. So the word qital has a condition. إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلْقِتَالِ. When God invites you and calls you towards qital, what happens? إِثَاقَلْتُمْ إِلَّسِ. While previously in another verse, either here or in another verse, it says you used to look forward to it. You used to say, if we were there at Badr, we would do this and that. Now you see death facing you in your eyes, staring in your eyes, وَأَنْتُمْ تَنْظُرُونَ. What has happened to you? So a call is a must for jihad, bil qital. Jihad is safe, I mean. A call has to be given by the imam of the period. And qital is done collectively, not by the individual fatwa of mullahs. وَأُذِنَ لِلَّذِينَ يُقَاتَلُونَ بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا. These are the preconditions which have to be met. Uzina, by whom? By God. الَّذِينَ يُقَاتَلُونَ, against whom the war is already waged. بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا, because they are the ones against whom transgression is committed. They are transgressed upon. So where is the war or offense anywhere mentioned in this verse? Offensive war is not at all the subject of discussion here. It is a war of atrocities against the Muslims, which is now permitted to be rebutted in the same coins. But after how long? After 13 years of one-sided persecution at the hands of the enemies of Islam, impatience, with absolute utter patience. Some people say, like Maududi does, that yes, 13 years of patience, but how could they defend themselves when they were so weak? When they became strong, then of course they were permitted to wage war against others. But how could the enemy travel all the way from Mecca to Medina if they had grown strong? They were still weak. And this verse bears witness against those who claim that Islam was only waiting for strength. Because what strength was there in Islam at that time? The verse says, بِأَنَّهُمْ ظُلِمُوا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى نَصْرِهِمْ لَقَدِيرٌ. They're so weak that every Tom, Dick and Harry begins to strike them down with swords and spears, and they are so weak, الَّذِينَ أُخْرِجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ. Having been driven out of their houses, they can go to Mecca, and in Mecca too they're so small in number, so defenseless in strength, in power, that the enemy is 100% certain that it's impossible for such as these to combat us in any battlefield. 1,000 strong, well-trained warriors of Arabia, armed to the teeth, accompanied by women who sang the songs of war, and many among them were mounted on camels, many on horses, and they were armed, as said, with the most modern weapons available at that time. Against them, who were the 313? So it is impossible to conceive that God was waiting for them to become strong. They were not strong. Yet God, when permitted, said, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى نَصْرِهِمْ لَقَدِيرٌ. Now this is essential, because unless you spread the message with sacrifices, with the word of mouth and word of wisdom and word of persuasion and love, the message itself will always remain doubtful. It is the truth which is dearer to God, not the suffering of the believers as much. He cares for the believers, but the truth of the Prophet is far superior. If all prophets of Allah had been provided with weapons to fight with, they could have conquered many areas, or maybe defeated completely, ousted. But how would the issue of truth be decided then? Truth is only decided when it is weak, yet it begins to dominate all who come to strike it, all who come to confront it. So it is the destined domination of truth over stronger enemies which makes it, which manifestly witnesses itself. The truth, which manifestly witnesses the quality of truth of prophets. If they were strong and fighting and won, what would be the influence drawn by the people of the world? Tell me. Would they call it a holy war? What is holy about it? A strong people charged with sometimes such messages as makes them mad. It has happened elsewhere in the world, not only with two religions. Why was Abdullah bin Sabah so powerful, and why he struck terror in the hearts of the great kingdoms of the time? Because his followers had been driven to a madness of belief, which was not true. Evidently it was wrong. Yet if you are dedicated to a cause to the point of madness and you are ready to sacrifice everything, then such a people driven with that mad belief in something, anything, they many a time dominate and create terror all around. But this is not the sign of truth. What is truth then? The truth begins with sacrifices, which the party of Abdullah bin Sabah did not. Truth begins in a situation where the sword is held in the hands of the enemy and the poor followers of a prophet have only their necks to offer, their throats to offer, to be slaughtered. They have nothing else to defend themselves. This is an unchangeable fate of religion from the time of Adam up to the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. There's no exception. So the first 1300 years of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's conduct is the beacon of light for the Muslims of all eras till the doomsday. And again, who were the warriors who began to win victories for Islam in Medina before it reached there? What battles were fought there? What happened to Aus and Khazraj? Why they shifted their support from their leadership of Abdullah bin Sulul and like of them and offered their platform to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. Show me one single instance where a battle was fought against the Medinites. A single person was murdered by a Muslim from Mecca. They were in their hands. They were homeless. They provided them homes. They even were ready to share their wives, divorce some of them for the sake of those who had left their wives behind. Is this what you understand by jihad, or anyone else? Holy war? What war? Those who offered their lives later on were not won by swords. They were won by the word of truth, by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, by his conduct, by the sacrifices of the early Muslims. So who created that army? This is the point. Who, when attacked, defended itself. So if they sat down heavy after an interval of peace and security, then God has the right to tell them, now when we call you to raise the sword in our name, but for your own sake. If you don't do it, then you'll be wiped out. Now that we have given you guarantee that inna Allah ala nasrihim laqadir, what justification have you got to keep sitting? Now this situation is so different from the one you have quoted from the contemporary age, there is no comparison, no similarity whatsoever. The most important thing is that the war the Muslims are waging are against their own brother Muslims. Why can't they see it? Have all the kuffar died and vacated the earth that they must find a Muslim to shed his blood in the name of God? All the countries you have mentioned, Muslims are fighting against Muslims and shedding their blood and dishonoring women and even mercilessly killing the children. What is this war? If it were a holy war, if it were in response to that call of God, which I mentioned from Surah Jummah, or the one you mentioned from Surah Tawbah, then what should be the outcome? Does Allah ever abandon those who respond to His call of qital and lets them be destroyed? Have you ever heard of such a thing? On the contrary, kam min fi'atin qalilatin ghalabat fi'atan kathiratan bi'iznillah. Or I think this is the verse, find out. Yes. So it happened at the time of David and Talut and Jalut. It happened at the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every time he went to fight for the right of the Muslim survival. This is holy war. To fight for the right of your survival, despite the fact that you're weak. To have trust in God, and then present a new proof to the world that every time a weak people confront a stronger people, much stronger people, invariably they defeat them and oust their might and bring them to naught. And before it there is a promise, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى نَصْرِهِمْ لَقَدِيرٌ. This is holy war. Every man in the world can understand it. Nobody can reject this concept. But what sort of holy war is there in Afghanistan, in Kuwait, in Egypt, in Sudan? Who is killing whom? So please do not permit people to confuse the issue. It's so clear. And why don't they win the battles? Where are those mujahideen who have won back the territory of Palestine, the Holy Land, even an inch from the Jews? The constant courses from a small spot of the Jewish presence to continue to spread. Thousands upon thousands of Muslim lives were offered in sacrifice. Where was God? God of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why did not God approve this sacrifice on their part? Because when they went to war, they did go it with full dedication and spirit. Why did God withdraw His support from them? And they were slaughtered and cut down like vegetable under the knife of a cook. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ قَالُوا لَا طَاقَةَ لَنَا الْيَوْمَ بِجَالُوتَ وَجُنُودِهِ قَالَ الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُو اللَّهِ كَمْ مِنْ فِئَةٍ قَلِيلَةٍ غَلَبَتْ فِئَةً كَثِيرَةً بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ. Despite the fact that they were not given such positive, such evident promise, their belief made them make this statement. They had such faith in God that they said that yes, the enemy is stronger, but many a time, with the help of God, smaller armies have routed the bigger armies. So they said, Bi-iznillah, when God so desires and orders, Wallahu ma sabirin. But there it is the categorical promise by God. So if the wars of today are really holy wars in the sight of God, according to the verses quoted by many a Muslim scholar, then where is God? Why do they not ever succeed? What happened between Syria and Israel? They fought bravely indeed to begin with, but at the loss of Golan Heights. We still can't take an inch from them. When they do, it is never indicative of the help from Allah. It is either indicative of help from Russia or help from America. So do these Muslim scholars translate this verse, Inna Allah ma sabirin, or Inna Allah ala nasrihim laqadir, as America will be with them or Russia will be with them? It is an insult to the very concept of holy war. Because Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when driven to extreme need for some people to help the army of Muslims at Badr, when he was told that a mushrik, an idolater, who was a known warrior, who struck terror all around because of his fame, he had come to help the camp of Islam, and he was presented to him. You know the reaction of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He said, Islam would not take any help from the idolaters. I don't know. This is the truth of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How it shined more than a broad daylight in such dire necessity of help. This is the truth of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I don't care for victory. My cause is the cause of God. I will not accept help from idolaters. What were the Russians who came to the help of Palestinians? They were not even believers in anything. Total atheists, committed atheists, who joked with the idea of belief in God, who boasted that we have gone to space and we have seen no sign of God, like Pharaoh did before. And then all the time, whenever any Muslim attempt to fight Israel succeeded, it was always with the support of Russia. When it withdrew, nothing happened, nothing was left behind. Whenever they won a territory through negotiation, it was always with the help of America, never without. And they exult in it as, this is our victory, victory of Islam. But what is the net result? How big is the present Palestine as compared to the one which was granted to them by the British and later on by United Nations? A small territory which has grown to 100-fold or less, but it's so big now that it practically overshadows all the Muslim countries around. Where is the promise of God? So we must never permit ourselves to misinterpret God for the sake of our national prides. It is not the name of God for which people are fighting here. It is for their own national pride, for their own personal advantages, for their own leaderships, for the domination of a religious sect and so on and so forth. So Allah knows best for whom they are fighting. So just to quote the Quran is not sufficient. You know how Khawarij quoted the Quran? They raised the Quran on the space. So the Holy Quran is the most, unfortunately, the one against whom transgression is committed most often. In the name of Allah, you say anything to the poor masses and you drive them to their annihilation and death, and nothing happens. So I hope I have said enough in answer to this question to remove many misunderstandings of the people today. But when you do fight with an ism, when the preconditions of jihad are met for a holy war with weapons, then it is impossible for you to be defeated. Impossible. However big the armies be or the might of the people around, Allah will never abandon those who fight with His mission for His cause. Thank you. Please. I'm sorry, you have to write a book. In fact.
Okay, I'll try.
But this was a very important question.
Yes.
Because most often I found Arabs who come to ask questions confused about this. And the very idea is a few verses, excites them and say, come on, let's go and fight. Please. What I advise the Muslim world is that, number one, they should do whatever is in their power to unite with other Muslims. The problems which the world of Islam is facing are manifold. Number one, their beliefs have got split into different forms and regions of observation. From one region of observation, the Quran seems to give a different message, from another, a different message. The same verse is interpreted to indicate the superiority of Hazrat Ali over all others. While the others, the Sunnis, don't read any such message in that verse. And they say it's just an ordinary expression and you are dragging it unjustifiably in your direction to draw your argument from it artificially, forcibly. Without it does not have that. Such debates are raging over hundreds of verses, not just one. The world of Islam is split into 72 sects, and Jamaat Ahmediyya claims to be the 73rd Jamaat. The question is, if you permit your difference in understanding of Islam to stand in the way of the unity of Muslims, then you are neither a lover of Islam nor a sane person who is capable of taking important, wise decisions in such matters. The matter of faith is with God. Let Him decide who is right and who is wrong. But the common claim is the most important factor. When all Muslim sects, without fail, pronounce themselves as Muslims, pronounce themselves as the follower of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, believer in the unity of God, believer in the Holy Quran, believer in all the prophets, when they are joined in 5 fundamentals, why should you not unite them because of this commonality and forget about the differences? I don't mean the differences should be altogether ignored. People should have a free dialogue with each other with the help of the Quran. That's also a jihad. But because of the differences, to carve 70 ummahs out of one, So that at the time of need, they're all divided, and their might is pitched against each other. This is what is doing the greatest damage to the world of Islam. And the mullahs who quote the Quran, they are responsible. Shia mullahs say, if you kill Sunnis and fight with Sunnis, you will go to heaven. Straight to it. And Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Hazrat Ali would come to receive you there, you know. And the Sunni mullah say, kill a Shia and your heaven is guaranteed, underwritten. Again, Rasulullah Sallam comes again, as if he has no other purpose in the hereafter but to receive Muslims who kill Muslims. What madness! First get rid of this madness. This is the major disease which is killing you. Then think of jihad. Without it, you are not capable of jihad. Unite the ummah with the same call which was issued by the Quran to all the Ahl Kitab. If the Quran can call them to commonality, why can't the Quran call you to the commonality? You are closer already. The Holy Quran addressing the Ahl Kitab, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَىٰ كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. Why do you overemphasize the differences? Come, let us join our hands, our forces for a good cause. In that area where we are one already, where our beliefs agree with each other. This is real jihad. For the sake of a good cause, even the non-believers, even Ahl Kitab, who were enemies of Islam, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, particularly the Jews, they are invited to come join in the common cause. So this means the differences in beliefs must not be permitted to stand in the way of common good cause. This is a simple message. Why don't the ulama learn this message from the Quran? Why don't they issue a call of unity, telling them, all right, we will not object to whatever beliefs you have about the Quran, about God, about Ali, about Muhammad Rasulullah, and we will shut our ears to that. But for God's sake, come to join the battle of the Muslim Ummah against those who oppress the Muslim Ummah, who deny them the right of honorable existence in the world. Then the entire world of Islam will be united. It is impossible then for the enemy to go on splitting the Muslims and ruling one country or the other and make them fight with each other and make them hate each other. So that is the first message which I give to you. If you are fond of jihad, I welcome that idea. But first, rabitu. Bind your horses on the borders. Get ready. And then the question of jihad will arise later on. This will be the first jihad which is needed of you to get united in the name of God. Yes. Because 5 minutes are left, so whatever is we can do of translation, we will do. The next, you can start with the remaining tomorrow, inshallah.